Three. Thank you so much for coming on again. Sorry about that, Bonnie. We
Oh,
had
that's okay.
good conversation, and I was so sad. So sad. Uh, okay, so can you introduce to yourself again to the audience, please?
Sure. So my name is Bonnie. Most people know me across social as Posh Notions or Posh. Um, so I currently own a custom t-shirt design business where I design and then hand make t-shirts. We talked a little bit before about the fact that I have a few different chronic pain illnesses, one being rheumatoid arthritis, I have fibromyalgia, and some other things. And the business sort of stemmed from the fact that I couldn't work a conventional job anymore. So my biggest plan right now is to become a speaker to help that mind help other people who have chronic pain illnesses or other chronic illnesses in general get unstuck, leave that feeling of hopelessness and helplessness behind, because that's how I felt when I first got sick. So that's probably quicker than last time.
Yeah. Thank you so much for that. Yeah, I love what you do, and like I said before, that you inspire not only me. I hope that because you talk about um, you're and a mom who are doing an entrepreneurial venture and building your own business, and I hope that this message go to a parent, a mom, and they don't have to, you know, like for you, it's incredible because you have a mindset that because we live in a world of culture where we push our message that we should get like a traditional quote unquote job, right?
Right.
So, and we get pushed so much, and it kind of kills the average person. And that you're an inspiration to your kids, not only that they, uh, I think you said your younger daughter look up to you, while your son is an introverted, and the other one, it's she's in the like her state. I can't remember what you say. Like she don't believe it yet. Right.
So I have 4 kids. I
Right.
have 19, almost 17, one who will be 6 on Monday, and then a 2.5-year-old. So it's boy, girl, boy, boy. And you're right. So my daughter is the eye roller. She's my second oldest. And she thinks a lot of, and we'll probably get into this at some point, but she thinks that a lot of what I talk about now is kind of like fluffy or hippie, or she doesn't get it. And she's kind of in that, almost in that teenage angst phase right now, where she hasn't quite found what makes her happy. And she's at 16, so that's totally normal. But I made a huge transition a couple of years ago, about a year and a half ago. About that. And so it was a big change for her and for my older son, because I made within a few days this massive, like, because of getting off medication, which we talked about, this massive like mindset shift, and that was the beginning of it. Like, it wasn't said and done in a couple of days. It took a really long time to, the year and a half to get where I am now. But it was kind of like I'm not a stranger, but almost kind of like a stranger to her, because she was used to me being irritable and getting upset easily. And the 5-6 years previous to that, I was pretty miserable. Like, I tried to fight it, but I was pretty miserable. And that, when you're a mom, like, that just, it seeps into everything. And so for her, yeah, she's still kind of, I don't know, she's in disbelief or it's just part of her personality. She's a lot like her dad. She's a lot like both of us. But she gets some of that cynicism from him. And whereas my older son, we talked about, he's on the spectrum. He's more introverted, but he's also unfortunately been circumstantially taught that people out in the real world can be kind of nasty. I mean,
Yeah.
he bullied a lot, like severe bullying a lot, all the way through school. But so the entrepreneurial path makes good sense for him. And I think it will at some point for her too, because she's an artist and that's what she really wants to do. So for the one you were talking about though, is my 5, he's going to be 6, is my son thinks it's really cool because like I'm talking to YouTubers, I'm watching YouTubers, and YouTubers is a very broad word, but in a 5-year-old mind, he's watching these people on YouTube. They're YouTubers. Like he doesn't quite understand, there are people who are marketers and there are people who are gamers and there's people who, like Evan Carmichael, who's an entrepreneur turned YouTuber. YouTube is his medium, his main medium of getting his message out. So he thinks it's really cool because mommy's talking to YouTubers and mommy's going to be on YouTube. And he's got this whole idea that YouTube's just this really cool thing to do. And so he gets a big kick out of that. He's not as much interested in the t-shirts and stuff that I do. Like sometimes he likes to work with me and do some things. But I think the fact that I've been meeting people online and then going to meet some of them in person just really does it for him. Like that's just, and my 2-year-old, yeah, he's not clueless, obviously, but he doesn't really understand much of what's going on right now as far as, YouTube and t-shirts and business. So.
Yeah, thank you so much for saying. It's not just that. I think it's the cultural norm. I think that the culture is that you're supposed to get a job and security and not being an entrepreneur. I think that people joke upon being an entrepreneur because it's not, in a way, it's not cool for people. I mean, it's cool now because Evan Carmichael and Gary Vee, they make it cool.
Right.
But as for your son, also, yeah, I can understand because when I was little, I was shy and introverted, and we talk about this a little bit, and I didn't know how to talk to people, and I was bullied because I'm a nice guy and I don't want to fight anybody. So there's certain time when I was a teenager, I get into fights, but I think it was unnecessary. But because we introverted like our own alone time, like. I forgot what you said. Can you gap between what you said? I can't remember the other time when you said about introvert or how we can bridge. I can't remember.
About what?
Introverted. Like, how like you said we should like go out or. Like,
oh, well, no, what I was talking about and was my understanding of introvert versus extrovert was different actually before you and I talked the other day.
Right.
And you kind of clarified that as that introverts tend to get their energy from their alone time and extroverts get their energy from being around other people. And I had never heard it put that way before, or maybe I did and ignored it. I don't know. But that to me wasn't, when you think of introvert, like a stereotype of introvert, people think people who just don't want to be around people, who like to be by themselves. But when you put it in terms of energy, that makes a lot of sense. Because, and I was talking to a friend of mine actually yesterday about this, and so like people who have anxiety, really bad anxiety, I've struggled with anxiety my entire life. Being in crowds of people tends to be overwhelming. And what we were talking about was, for me, it can be both. So like going to, say, I don't know, a conference somewhere that has I'm trying to think of a good way to put this. So going into a room full of people that I feel like I have nothing in common with, and I'm not really sure, like if I would go to like a vehicle expo or something, you know what I mean? Like I would feel really just kind of
Out of
out of
place.
place.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that would suck some of my energy because I can't talk cars with these people. Like I know some about cars. I know some about, car audio because my husband does that. But it's not really my scene. And I would find myself completely probably drained by the time I was done doing something like that. But then I go into something like I was telling you, I drove to Jersey last year with my 2 older kids to go meet Gary Vee, and there was a lot of people in this place, but it was energizing to me because like I could turn and talk to most of those people and have something to talk about. Like it might have been something different with every single one of them, but I would have something somewhat in common, at least have a short conversation with. And like when I went to see Evan, like there was probably, I don't know, maybe 35 people, 40, maybe more people in there. I don't even know because I was there to see him. And that was energizing for me because one, Evan brings some massive energy, let me just tell you. But two, like I could turn and talk to like, and he made us do this. And like I found out the one woman lives right underneath my mother-in-law. Like I would have never turned around in a room and just started talking to somebody, at a car convention. Like I would be like, I don't know, you know what I mean? So now that you put it that way in terms of energy, it makes a lot of sense to me. And I'm still trying to figure out, like, am I an introvert, extrovert? I'm not really worried about the label, but it made me think a lot about it the past couple of days after our conversation.
Well, I think
People
it's
think that introverts don't like to go out at all, and I don't think that's true. I don't think, now that you've explained it to me, like, I don't think that's true. I think if I took my son, who doesn't like crowds of people at all, he's historically never liked any crowds of people, and took him somewhere that, they were doing electronics demonstrations or computer demonstrations or something like that, he may be more, it may bring out a different like side of him. Like, you know what I mean? Like he may not even, the crowd of people might not even bother him. I don't know. So I don't know. I think you helped me redefine that stereotype, which is amazing because I love not having stereotypes,
yeah. I mean, of course, we live in the world where there's a lot of stereotype. But no, the reason why we also bring this gap between, because you all we because I want to get more into this too, because as you say, you love, because I can see that you're enthused about Evan, right, Carmichael. And, so he's all you mentioned this too. He's an introverted, and I
yeah,
think that,
that's right.
yeah, and
That
so many
blew my
people,
mind.
yeah, and so many people have this bad image. That's why I want to get rid of this stigma that introvert. I'm telling you, there's so many spectrum that people, because over the years I have studied a lot of people who you already know that are extroverted. Like one of I look up to are Bob Proctor. There's a entrepreneur guy. His name is Guy Kiyosaki. There's so many successful people who are extroverted, but now they're gregarious because they work on it. And now,
You mean introverted?
huh?
They're introverted? You mean they're introverted?
Yeah, they're
Okay.
they're really like the most successful people are like, holy cow. I don't know if you know the because Gary Vee is more like extroverted, but you can tell by the way that he said hustle. But the thing is, we talk this on a little bit too. Relationship are based upon energy exchange,
Right.
and you know this. You can explain after I explain it. Is that you can feel a person energy. You explain this too. That you can feel person energy when they're warm, or can you say that? Explain that to the audience.
Oh, yeah. So we were talking about energy exchange, and I was just saying that for me, especially since I've gotten off of the medication I was on, a lot of my sensitivity to things has come back in a good way, sometimes in a bad way, but that you can feel like it's almost like a temperature change.
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
Like
That's a
their
good one.
energy, like,
Huh?
so you're around somebody who's like warm and happy and they have a good aura about them. Like a lot of people, can read auras. There's different ways to talk about this, but like they come in and instantly, like even hearing that they're going to come visit you makes you, like, I have goosebumps because I'm thinking about my friend Lauren right now. And I get so excited when she's coming, no matter what kind of mood I've been in, or if I'm having a tough time, like I get really excited because when we're together, we somehow raise both, like we could both be in a crappy mood, but for some reason the general energy about the both of us, by the time 5 minutes is up, like both of our energy, our moods, like everything bad that's happened, we're not even thinking about it anymore, but you can feel that almost like a temperature where it's warm. And when you've got a person who is constantly negative, and I don't mean somebody who's putting on a front, because this is one of those things where it's, so you could have, so like my daughter's, she's a good person. I don't mean bad to say about her, obviously, but she kind of puts on this front almost of like this negative brooding kind of, that's why I was saying like the teenage angst kind of thing. But if she was truly a negative, like nasty person, I would feel cold every time she walked past me or walked into the room or was in my, general, and I don't feel that, which is how I know that although she may be struggling somewhat as a teenager, deep down, that's not who she really is. And it would be the same if you had somebody who was really negative and kind of evil and was faking being positive. They're not going to walk in and exude this warmth. Like I can sense that. Like I have a very keen sense for fake people. I guess a lot of people like to call it the bullshit-ometer. Like you can tell from a mile away that it's all BS. Like whatever's on the surface is all BS because they're really not a nice person. But yeah, there's some kind of, it's almost like seeing like a little kid smile or hearing them laugh, and you like that's contagious. You can't help but to laugh or smile yourself. Like that's a perfect example of somebody exuding good energy. Like I could be miserable and my 2.5-year-old does something goofy and he has this I keep trying to record it because this contagious giggle that like you can't help unless you're like a cold-hearted person. Like you cannot help but start to laugh with him, even if you have no idea what he's laughing about. Like, and that goes for a lot of little kids. You know what I mean?
I know what you're coming from, because I have a nephew and he do the same thing you said, laugh. I think it's because a kid is a baby when it's being born. It's pure of energy. It's not
Right.
it's not being molded yet. That's the thing
Right.
that irks me the most. It's like we live in this culture that it's molding ideas that it's not correct. It used to work in the industrial age, and we're living in this fast-paced technology that these ideas are controlling our perception and our lens, and it controls how we affect the world. It's actually an effect on our body, our effect on this world. And when you say temperature, that really like clicked. That one I learned today from you. Like, holy shit, you're right. People, yeah, you can tell, even though like for me, if a person who pretend to be nice, you can tell they're putting up the front. Right? You can feel their energy. You don't have to. They don't have to explain it to you. They like your energy is just an information that you feel off a person. Because one time, I was being aware of energy based on, in 2013 that I never knew. So there was this person in my neighborhood. He was walking one day, and I was walking near him, and I can feel the dark, cold energy, and I was like, "What is this?" I can feel it, and I was like, "Oh, I don't want to be around that." But for me, when I try to raise my vibration, or not just a fixed smile, but like try to like when you're positive, And when you have this warm energy, people can feel it. And every time I go out, even though I'm introverted, I wasn't always like this. Um, I try to talk to people and make people smile, but for me, I did it as a test and observation because I want to see how people react to my energy, and I use that energy and to see what happened. And people, usually when people are happy, they generally make you feel better. But when you're like down and out, you can feel that they're really depressed. You kind of not want to be near them. It's not like that, but it's like, for me, when I don't want to be bothered, it's like, yeah. But you're right. It's like temperature change. And when it comes to, I want to talk more about Evan and how because you talk about, I saw your post on Instagram. You read the one word. Can you also explain about your one word and what makes you want to read into Evan?
Sure. So, we talk. I'm going to go back just a little bit.
I know it's a lot. I know.
Just to give some context, because so, and we can dive deeper into this as you ask questions. But basically, back in 2017, a lot of things changed for me, and a lot of it was mindset. A lot of it was quitting a bunch of meds I had been taking for years and years and years, and for depression, anxiety. I had surgery. A couple months later, I broke my ribs. I was trying to run this t-shirt business that I was still kind of fairly new at. And I wanted to just like give up on my business. Like, I was burned out, and I had just met my friend Lauren, who's now like we're soul sisters. Like, I've known her I met her in like August of 2017, so not even a full 2 years yet. And we just connected. But something she had suggested to me was doing EFT tapping.
Oh, yeah.
And and I had to go back and think about this last time because I couldn't remember how I landed on Evan in the first place.
Yeah, that's okay.
I do remember being in the kitchen, and after the EFT, I got a suggested video. It was either Tony Robbins or Gary Vee. I think it was Tony, and I just kept letting it like autoplay, basically.
Huh.
So I ended up Tony, and then Gary, and then Evan, and I listened to Evan somewhat at that point, but Gary really caught my attention. Like, I think because of the way he delivered and the way he delivers his message, like no BS whatsoever, no filter whatsoever. Like,
oh yeah, definitely.
And I love that because that really, that's me. Like, you know, like I'm not him obviously, but like that's typically, like, I don't sugarcoat stuff. I don't like bull crap. I don't like beating around the bush. I'm just gonna tell you, and if you don't like it, then don't ask me my opinion. Like, I don't, you know what I mean? So, I listened to Evan somewhat here and there, and then I didn't for a long time, and then I jumped on one of his live YouTubes at one point, a couple of them, and something with Evan at that point didn't vibe with me. I can't remember exactly what it was, but I wasn't as attached to him at that point as I was to Gary Vee. So fast forward, and I was still engaging with Evan's content, just not as much. And I happened across one of his posts popped up, and it said something about "see you soon, Pittsburgh," and I was like, "Whoa, wait a minute!" I'm like, so I jumped on, and I was like, "You're in Pittsburgh right now? Like, wait, what is going on here?" And I was like, I have to go. And then I was thinking, I'm like, well, I can't go because I was doing those Humira injections for my rheumatoid arthritis I was telling you about, and they knocked me down for a few days, like feeling like the flu. And I usually take them on Friday evenings. Evan was coming Saturday, and actually he direct messaged me, which blew my mind because I asked in his on his story post, like, are you in like, what's going on? Are you in Pittsburgh? Da 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 da. Are there still tickets? And he DM videoed me back. And at that point, I'm like, right before that, I'm like, I can't go. I'm not going to go. And I get this DM video, and I'm like, huh. Like, so he took the time. He's on tour. Took the time to like message me back. So I decided to bump my Humira to the night after so Saturday night, like when I got back, and hurried up and made these t-shirts, and they were tour t-shirts, and I went. And it was crazy because it was snowing, it was icy, it was miserable. The muffler on my husband's car was like falling off, so it was loud and obnoxious and smelly. And I show up at this event, and I walked in first, and I wasn't going to, like, I was gonna wait, because that's back to that introvert extrovert thing. Like, I got really nervous all of a sudden, because there's nobody in the room but Evan and his wife and Danny, his videographer. And I'm like, what the hell? I'm already here. Like, what horrible stuff is going to happen? Like, I'm just going to go in. I'm going to give him these shirts while nobody's in the room. It'll be less awkward. Here, he was on a live. So I ended up giving him these t-shirts on his Instagram live. And it was like the most amazing experience, because I was nervous he was going to be offended or upset that I used his like logo thing from his website. It's not his logo, but it was a logo ish thing from his it's called the Circle of crap.
Is that why? Is that it's on the circle of Is that's why you have it on your Twitter, the profile Twitter? The
Is it on there?
Yeah, no, because you have the profile, the headler. You have like the circle of something belief or something.
I might, yeah, that's what that was. So I took the I can't remember, it's the circle of what.
Wait, here. I got it for you. Hold on. Keep talking.
And actually, I have the shirt right here.
Oh, you got it? You got it?
I do.
All right.
Forgot that I had this hanging here. Okay, so what's it called? Circle of Potential.
Ah, okay.
So can you see that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Holy shit.
So I made him one.
That is beautiful.
Thank you. So
You're
I made,
welcome.
here's the back.
Holy shit. Oh, okay. I like the back. I like it because uh-huh. That's beautiful.
Thank you.
Cool.
So I customized one for him and one for his wife, Nina, and then mine was different. So you see this right here. It says, let me see if I can get that up there. It says experiences. Can you see that?
Oh, yeah. I see self-aware and I see experience. Yeah.
Okay. And it says, I am here. This big thing right here.
Right.
I keep forgetting that the camera's over here, not in the middle. So anyways, on theirs, I put, you are here. And kind of like the, little map marker. And then on mine, I put, I am here, to signify, like, this is my experience. I get to come here and be a part of this. So he was like elated. And it wasn't the reaction I was expecting, because to me, in my mind, he's like semi-famous and like lots of people. I mean, he's got 2 million subscribers on YouTube. I didn't realize how much of a big deal to him it was gonna be. And he was like showing people and reading it, and he put it on and wore it for the Pittsburgh event. And I was like, starstruck, right? And I never expected any of that. I figured at the very, he would have said thank you and, I don't know, stuck in his bag or something. I have no idea. I have no idea what my expectations were, because it happened so fast from the time I actually decided to go to getting there. So anyway, I sat through his event, and it was amazing. And the next day, so I was lying in bed because I did my shot, and I'm exhausted and I can't do. I decided to buy his book, Your One Word, and it was 2-day Amazon Prime, which is awesome because I had it in my hands before I could even stop thinking about it. And I read it in like 2 days, and so my one word is spirit. And after going through his book and taking lots of notes and looking things up in the dictionary and thesaurus and everything, so I had this list of words, and they didn't seem connected, right? So like tenacious and I'm gonna draw a blank now, but like regardless, I had this list of 10 words to describe myself. And once I started kind of like drawing the lines and connecting the dots, they all pointed to the word spirit, which for me embodies like everything I'm about. So like not quitting, not giving up, being persistent, you know, high energy, willing to, you know, wanting to give to others and help others be happy. Like there's just all these different ways you can use the word spirit to describe things, and every single word I had picked fit right underneath that. So that ended up being, that's my one word. And basically the concept of the book is that it's, Evan believes that there is one word to describe who you are as a person and what your purpose in life is. And it's so, and from that, you basically, if a decision comes up and you have, you know, you're looking at your options and whatnot, if they don't fit under that word, like if they don't fit, so if something pops up and my choices, you know, I have 5 different choices or whatever, and it has to fit under that word spirit, otherwise like I don't do it. Does that make sense? So like, so if you came to me with a project you wanted to do, and or whoever came to me, so I don't do anything political, I don't do anything that would be considered like racist or hateful or anything like that. I don't, so I have like my morals. And if you came to me with a project and it was something that was blatantly offensive to somebody else, I would tell you no right off the bat. Like, I'm not, you're going to have to take that project somewhere else. I'm not going to do that for you. Because I believe in the spirit of people. I believe in the spirit of giving. You know what I mean? Like, there's all these different things that spirit means to me. And that would be like an easier one. But like, if you came, I guess I'm not doing a great job of describing this, but like, if something came up in your life and you had to make a yes or no decision about it, it should be an easy yes or no based on what your one word is. So,
Well, to your point also, I mean, I guess people, he's a really cool guy. For me, the way I see it is that my message is for people. It's always my message that people think that just because people have a lot of subscribers and followers or their celebrity status, they're not God. Most people think they're God, but they're not God. They're just like you. It's just that they develop their talent. They have a lot of attention, of course, but they're just like every human people. They have feelings. They have flaws. They're not perfect. People think they're perfect. They're not. But as you said, Evan, he was excited when you gave them to him, and that's perfect example. He cares.
no, he really does.
Yeah, and that's what makes him matter to people and matter to you. And also, you talk about Gary Vee. The reason why you talk about this when we did the interview the other time, even though it was it was so good. The reason why he vibed with you because he messaged with you for entrepreneurship at your age, and you look really young. You know what I'm talking about? We talked about this before.
We talked about you mean Gary Vee?
Yeah, Gary. No, not Gary Vee, but I'm talking.
Oh, Evan.
No. We're okay. So, and we're talking about Gary Vee, where you're talking about how at your age it wouldn't be like you thought it would be. Like like most people thought it would be over.
Like, oh yeah, you said to me, I was talking about with Gary Vee, and you said you were drawn to me because I'm one of the people who are over 40 who doesn't feel that it's over yet. Like I'm just starting.
That's the thing that make me. That's what it's so attractive. Like your mindset, it's like you don't see it as an ending. You see it as a beginning. Like I don't see that in every 40-year-old or adults that have enthused about life. Because if I go out right now, tons of people are. I don't want to like look down, but it's made me sad because, you know, my neighbor, you know, he talked like how I disagree with his point, but he used fear as a trap instead of using this his experience to move forward. You know, that's
A
why.
lot of people, I mean, I'm guilty of that myself. I mean, I'm going to be honest with you. So we talked a little bit about school and why I quit and whatnot, and we can talk about it again if you want. But so I ended up going back for something completely different. But my kids were already 3 and 1 at that when I went back to school. And I went because I had been in a car accident and I wasn't allowed to work, and I don't like to sit still. And I'm like, I gotta do something with my life. You know, I've got these kids to support. And so I went back to school for accounting because I'm like, okay, well, this will be easy and it pays well. And so I did my 2 years of school, and I worked in the field for 2005, so about 6 years off and on. And then I got sick in 2011. And to be honest with you, had I not gotten sick, I'd probably still be at an accounting job. Like, there's so much that changed that day. And beyond that, now I can't say for sure because I also had 2 more kids. So who knows? I may have decided to stay home with them. I may have, you know, taken some time off and gone back to my job. Like, I have no idea. But it did pay well. Like, I wasn't a millionaire, but it paid well for somebody like me at that time, you know. And so for me, it was getting sick that was like this catalyst almost. But it wasn't immediate. Like, I lost my job. I was miserable. I couldn't stay awake most of the day. I was in a lot of pain. And then several months later, I found out I was pregnant with my now almost 6-year-old. And that was a big game changer for me for obvious reasons. But beyond that, like, I couldn't lay around anymore. Like, my other 2, when I got sick, were 11 and 9. So they were pretty self-sufficient. Like, they could get themselves up for school, get dressed, you know, cook if they needed to, like those kinds of things they were able to manage. But getting pregnant again was like, okay, like, we're not only are we starting over after a decade plus, but I can't sit around and, like, throughout this pregnancy. Like, I can't. And then he came, and of course, you know, momming ain't easy, and there was late nights and this and that and the other. And he forced me to get active. Whereas had I not had 2 more, I could have very well, you may not have ever heard, we may have never even met, because I could have just kept sinking into depression, stayed on depression meds, stayed on my couch, and been content. I mean, I don't know if that's what would have happened, because I've never really been like a sit still kind of person. But part of that was I started looking for ways to make money, and because we were like perpetually broke. I had a mortgage, and I had this, and I had that. It's like a 2-person income household, you know, and I wasn't making any income. So I started looking for ways to make money. And I think we talked about, like, I've always had somewhat of an entrepreneurial sense, just, you know, always trying to make money from, you know, as a kid. And that's what we were talking about. We were joking about how so Gary Vee always talks about picking flowers and selling them.
Oh yeah, you did. Yeah, you did talk about it, yeah.
Yeah, and I was doing things like making custom friendship bracelets and making other things and selling stationery door to door. And I started babysitting when I was like 8 for my parents, and then 11 for the neighborhood kids. And was always doing something. Like, I started selling Avon at 14 under my mom's name, just because I wanted to make more money than babysitting. And I thought you were Lexi. I'm redoing the interview from the other day. All right. All right. I love you. Be careful. See you in a couple hours. That's my husband. This is Mr. Johnny.
What up? Hello.
He said hello. Is that your what? Mine? No, those are the ones that got messed up for Joby. If you want them, you can have them, but they're messed up.
For Windows?
Yeah.
When they get messed up?
Look at the A and the E and the A got smushed together.
I don't give a fuck. I'll put that shit on my car.
I have to put. I'll put transfer tape on for you. All right. I love you. Bye. He doesn't usually get home till like 3, but anyways, and you can also hear the language. Like my language is pretty off color sometimes, like swear word, but I'm trying to keep it kind of clean and PC here for you. So, we're not PC. That's the wrong word. Clean. Okay. But anyways, I'm usually pretty PC. But anyways, so yeah, I always had like an entrepreneurial gene, and I think a lot of that stems from, like Gary talks a lot about. I mean, a lot of people talk a lot about adversity and how that really can push, if you use it properly, it pushes you into like go mode, like if you let it. I wanted to be a doctor when I was like 5. Like I was completely aware of the fact that we were probably one of the poorest families on our street. You know what I mean? And you know, my dad worked for university so that we could have scholarships when we grew up. And so anyways, I get to this point where I've released from my job and my wheels start turning again. Like, what can I do? You know, I'm disabled. I wasn't even allowed to drive at first for several months because my body I had no reflexes for a long time. But then we've got a baby on the way, and I'm like, babies cost money. Like babies need lots of stuff. And I am historically the one that would jump into, it would be panic at first, and then it would be go mode. Like I would go panic about whatever it was, and I would instantly start problem solving and trying to figure out, like, what do we need to do to make this work? And I was talking about like eBay and Listia, and I was actually, we were talked about this too, like there's Reezy Resells now, and I have a friend Super Unsexy who's on Twitter and Instagram, and they do a lot of this, what Gary calls retail arbitrage. I was literally doing that like 6 years ago, and I'm kicking myself now for not sticking with it, but I really ended up hating it. Like I overcomplicated it and started to hate it. But that was one of the first things I did, was the eBay thing, and doing resale. And I had learned way back when that you could buy stuff at a thrift store, you could find new stuff at a thrift store, you could buy designer stuff at a thrift store, and you could flip it. So the entry for, like the cost entry was fairly low, and I was doing really well for a while. And it just, like I said, I ended up hating like the whole process besides the shopping part. Like that was still kind of fun. But so to get back to like the entrepreneurial thing, it at one point, it was after I had my son, my 6-year-old, I got pregnant with my now 2.5-year-old, and I was still trying to find ways to make money. So I think we were talking before about how this didn't start out as a passion driven business. Like I'm not going to lie, it wasn't. Like I needed to make money. And I knew that my husband's team, they use a lot of decals, like window decals, on their vehicles, and had come across a way to do that. And my first thing to him was, do you think if I make these, that the guys on the team would buy them? And he said, yeah. I said, okay, I can justify the cost of, you know, getting a machine and startup materials. And that's how it really started. I don't really do decals much anymore because I don't like working with that kind of vinyl. But that's what my husband was just talking about, was there's a couple sitting on the table for one of his teammates. But in the beginning, it was a drive to fill a need, and that need at that point was income. Like I needed to be creative, because I think that's why the eBay thing for me didn't work, because for me there was no creativity really involved except for maybe the copywriting. You know what I mean? And so that wasn't filling that void. This kind of did both in the beginning, but it still for a long time wasn't a passion driven business. I think that's why I kept burning out so many times, is because I was only doing it at that point. Like it got to a point where I was only doing it for the money. Like I like designing like a lot. And I love seeing people's reactions when they get their finished product. But there was a lot of stress behind it because I needed to be making a profit. Like I needed to be making money at all times in order to keep justifying to myself to keep going. So yeah, that's it has since morphed into something completely different, which is a really good thing.
Well, thank you for being an example of that. Like, we need more of that in this world. Like, I think that to top off with the education and workplace, right? My mission is to back to special education because I was special education and I thought it was stupid. But obviously, I think that the workplace or the school place is built so you can work for the rich, not for to be an employee. I mean, to not become an entrepreneur, but to be an employee for someone else, to build someone else's dream instead of their own. Because I see so many people, they don't have a vision for themselves. It's so sad, but I'm glad that that you have a vision for yourself, and that would impact not only me and my viewers, but for the world. Because I think that it's meaning that it's possible. You know, you make it like that you can do your dream and it can energize you. And you spoke. See, the thing is, people don't understand when you spoke about your passion, when you spoke about the love of your doing your passion, it make you light up. It make you like jump out of bed, and you want to do it. But that's the problem with the workplace and stuff like that. They don't want to make you. Most people don't want to jump out of bed. No.
No, and I think there's been a huge shift just even in the past 10 years, like you were saying, how Gary Vee and Evan, like they've made entrepreneurship cool. Whereas back in the day, you know, back when I was a kid, like you had to be, I mean, you had to have capital to build a business. I mean, it was a completely different model. And most businesses failed. Most businesses still fail. Like if you're still going after 2 years, you have a pretty good chance of continuing. But they say most businesses fail within the first 2 years. And back then, if you were an entrepreneur, you know, a businessman, you put your heart, your soul, your savings into building this business. And if it failed, like that was a really big deal. Like now people can jump from business to business to business if they want to. And, you know, the cost of entry for a lot of those businesses is really low. Now I grew up in that, like I said, my dad was working at a university so that we could all have university scholarships. And I blew mine. Like I tried multiple times and I hated it there. Like everything I tried, I hated. And, you know, my sister went, and she's not going to talk about her, but like she went for a little while and dropped out. But you're right, because when I was a kid, I wanted to grow up. I wanted to be a doctor because doctors made lots of money. That was what I thought when you know what I mean? And I wanted to help people. Like as I got older, it became more about helping people and what I was going to do after I got my doctorate and my, you know, my PhD. And, you know, I wanted to open a free clinic because access to healthcare where we lived was so, it just wasn't available. But I did, it was like, you're going to go to school, you're going to get married, you're going to have kids, you're going to have a house. Like that was the dream. That's like what we were, because we didn't know any better.
Right. That's true.
Never in my mind was I thinking about, am I going to be happy? Like that never, I'm telling you what, I don't even think that crossed my mind until maybe 2 years ago, that the whole point of all of this is not to have the house or to have it's because people think those things make you happy. And although nobody was saying that out loud, nobody would say that out loud. It was like just a thing to do. And until people started blowing the whistle like Gary does and some other of them about like the things don't make you happy. And a lot of us are going, what do you mean they don't make you happy? Like this is what we grew up learning. You know what I mean? Like And like, crap, you're right. Because guess what? I have a house and I have a family and I had, and I had a great job and I was miserable. You know what I mean? Like, I love my family, don't get me wrong. But when I was first facing all of that with the, having the mortgage and doing all this, and things were going kind of peachy for a while and then they weren't, it was like, the house didn't make me happy. The house was just, it was an accomplishment. And just another material possession. Like, it's happy's about your mindset, and we can talk about that more, but like, I was still thinking that 5 years ago, like, I was still striving after that, was like, if we just had enough money, if we could just do, and it's, it's not going to, like, money's a tool to bring, for me anyhow, now money is more of a tool to have experiences that bring you joy. Being happy is an overall mindset. Things don't make you happy. Like, they just don't.
Thank you so much for that. It's like you put it beautifully. Like, that's why I was like, yes, finally I can like hear someone say, because I think that the cultural norm, the people, for me, this is my message, always message. I try to deliver my best, because I'm using my platform to raise an awareness against people. See, the thing is, we live in, because back then I didn't even know that there's like, because you when you say it, it clicked. We wasn't aware because we didn't know any better, and I wasn't aware that there was this world that existed. Like, holy shit! Like,
Yeah.
like we didn't know. Like, what the fuck is, like you said, like EFT or law of attraction or entrepreneur. You didn't even know, and so we didn't know any better. But also, people still, because I'm a millennial and people look down on millennials because people think that we're entitled. I don't know, but I don't think so. I think they're just throwing around because I don't know. But
well, real quick to touch on that, I think, to be honest, there are a lot of millennial kids that do have a sense of entitlement. But I think what happens, and it's like, and I can only say this because I've literally had kids in basically with a generation gap. Like, there's 13 years between my oldest and my third oldest, and then there's 16 years between my oldest and my youngest. So they are being brought up in two completely different decades,
right.
like almost 2 decades. You know what I mean? And people, like, a lot of the people so I went to school with, like, they grew up a certain way, and we all vowed that our kids would never grow up this way. They were never going to be poor. They were never going to be without. They were never going to, this whole list of things, because we had it in our minds because of what our parents taught us, that like being poor was a bad thing, and not having stuff was a bad thing, and not having a house was a bad thing, not having a car.
Right.
So we're fed all of this, right? So then we turn around, we vow, like, we're never going to be like our parents, and we're going to make sure that our kids have everything they want, blah, 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 blah. Now, I wasn't one of them, luckily. My whole thing with raising especially my 2 older ones, was it's my job to give them what they need and then some of what they want. Like, not everything they want. Like, that just doesn't. But a lot of people went the opposite extreme from their parents, which their parents didn't give them any material possessions, to they want to give their kids everything. And everything in their mind is material possession. So now you do have this entire generation of millennial kids running around thinking that because their parents gave them everything, so should the rest of the world. But then you've got the other group that, like you, that don't think that way. And unfortunately, with the internet, I mean, negativity goes viral. Like, it just does. And once somebody latches onto the idea that this is how this group of people is, it's like stereotypes. It's just like any other stereotype. It spreads like wildfire. And I can even see a little bit of it in my 2 older kids here and there. And I have to put them back into place. Like, you're not entitled, like, to live here after you're done, you turn 18. You're living here because I want you to have a safe place to live, and da-da-da-da-da. But, like, I am not, and I never did provide them with, $1,000 presents and because I knew what would happen. I mean, me growing up, my dad looked at those people as spoiled. Like, that was just what we called people who got everything they wanted. And I refused to have spoiled kids. Like, my kids were going to learn work ethic, but I didn't mean to cut you off. But I think that's my opinion anywhere of how that ended up happening. Just because I lived like the flip side of that. Like, and
Yeah, it's okay. It's okay. It's an interview.
I'm doing an interview. Just letting you know. That's my son, my older son.
It's okay. It's okay.
But you were saying about millennials. People have this idea that you guys are lazy and whatnot, and
well, I mean, it's not. People think we're lazy, but I think for me, when I was little, because I come from a family of really poor, we had to live on welfare and stuff like that, and had to go shopping for my family. That's where I think that's the message I'm getting. People think that we're entitled, but people don't know where people come from. For me, every day, since I'm an older brother, I had to go shopping for my family, and I didn't like going shopping because it was so heavy. We don't have a car, and we had to fucking carry a bunch of grocery, and it was so heavy, and I don't want to do it. And so, and what ended up happening is, since as the older brother, I had so much pressure, chip on my shoulder, I didn't want to do it anymore. So I don't want to do that. So, but also I think that because my neighbor think that having material possession is a measure of success. I mean, you're doing well, but that doesn't mean you're doing well. It means people have this perception that it makes you happy, but the problem is people.
Give me 1 second. Where do you want
Screws.
There's a giant bucket of them out in the garage. Are you looking for wood screws?
Oh crap.
Drywall screws?
Sorry.
Okay.
Okay, it's okay. The problem is when we measure success, it shouldn't be measured in material things. It should be measured how happy we are and how satisfied, how fulfilled we are. Instead of that, that's why I see you're fulfilled a little bit or more when it comes to providing your service for product for people. And when you talk about your crowding inners, and also I would bring that to service, is that you say it changed your mindset, because I think that my friends, he've been when people tell people who are depressed they should take drugs. Can you talk about that?
Oh, so we were talking about last time about my history with depression and anxiety and medication, and I would never be one to tell people not to take medication. That's my personal view. What I would tell them, unless they're at a crisis point, is to try alternative therapies, first, or with your medication. Because I lived that medication merry-go-round cycle. I don't even know what to call it now, but I started taking depression medication when I was 16 or 17. I was in high school. And at that time, I didn't even know that, now my daughter's coming in. I didn't know that that's what it was. I was having stomach issues, and my mom, I went through a bunch of tests and stuff. He just left. He wants someone with Uncle Bill. I'm doing an interview. Okay, we'll text them. So I had a bunch of tests done on my stomach and whatnot, and the doctor and my mom gave me this pill to take every day, telling me that it was for my stomach, basically, was the premise. And at that time, I didn't even have any idea what I was dealing with, that it was anxiety. And I went for a few years taking this medication. And it wasn't until after I had my oldest, I had him, and then I had my daughter, actually. It wasn't until after I had her and started having some postpartum depression. And I went back to my family doctor, and he said, okay, we're going to give you this other medication. And because the internet, like we talked about, the internet was like in its infancy at that point.
You did talk about, yeah.
You know, like in '96 when I graduated high school, I was learning how to do web design, but it was HTML code writing, and most people didn't have internet in their homes, let alone their pockets. Like, so I blindly took the advice of my doctor. I trusted him, you know. I didn't have a pocket pharmacist, you know, at that point. So fast forward many, many years. I mean, she was born in 2002, but 2002, and I was on this roller coaster of medication. So I was taking antidepressants and anti-anxiety medication and medication to sleep and medication to stay awake. And it was like, I didn't ever really question my doctor much, because I'd come in, I'd say, okay, this is what's going on. And he'd either tell me to stop taking one thing and start taking something else, or whatever the case may be. So fast forward to 2017, and I'm having these like outbursts, like raging about the dumbest shit. Like like I still hate having dishes in my sink, but I'm not stomping around the house screaming about it anymore. My son is standing here, he can vouch for that. I used to do that. And to me, that at one point that was completely rational. Like I was completely justified in being that angry about dishes, and I'm blaming people for my anger, and you did this and made me angry. And it wasn't until like something happened, and I went to my doctor, like, because it got worse and worse and worse. And I went to my doctor, and I'm like, I am just really angry, like irate and raging about stuff. And there's another part to that I can tell you later, another time. But like, I said to him, you know, what can I do? And I was literally expecting him to write me another script for something else and go home and try it, and then, you know, keep going on about, well, that day he told me that the one medication I had been taking for 15 plus years can cause like rage and, you know, anger. And I mean, it can cause those feelings to be more intense anyways. And I was pissed. And like, it was in a matter of 30 seconds, I lost all like respect for this man, in that for 15 years I had been coming in and talking to him about my mood fluctuations. I mean, my diagnosis list was like pages long. Like it was ridiculous. And now I realize that I probably didn't have any of those things that weren't drug induced. Like, yes, I struggled with depression. Yes, I struggled with anxiety. You know, I struggled with nightmares and things, you know, post-traumatic stress and different stuff. But like a lot of that up and down was drug induced. And I'm like, you could have stopped this. And again, I take responsibility myself, because now we do have, you know, pocket pharmacies. We can look this stuff up. But I trusted that he knew what he was talking about, and that he knew what he was doing. And that day literally changed everything for me, for my kids, you know. And within a couple of days, the medication was Wellbutrin. Okay, this is a really old drug that lots of people take for lots of different reasons. It is, I think it's still a Class C drug. It's safe during, you know, mostly safe during pregnancy. Like I took this pregnant with my other two kids, and I never went back to see him. I quit. I was like, I'm done. And after I stopped taking that medication, I'm like, what's going to happen if I stop taking this one and this one? And I don't even remember how many I was taking at that point, to be honest with you. It was several, but I just started eliminating them. Because 3 days after stopping the Wellbutrin, I felt like a completely different person. Like I was calmer, and like stuff wasn't, I almost felt like I was sedated, like in a way, because I'm like, nothing around here has changed. Like everything's still the same, but I felt different. And like I said, I went on this like mini crusade for myself of just not wanting to take any more, you know, anti-anxiety or antidepressant medications. And I still get anxiety. I've still felt depressed at times. And I use air quotes because I feel like, as someone who struggled with depression, like I know depression can be short periods. It can be environmentally induced. It can be chemically induced. It can be, there's lots of different ways that these can happen, but I've gone through periods where I can feel myself kind of slipping back towards that depression line, and then I have to work extra hard to kind of pull myself back out of that. But I haven't, it's been a year and a half plus now that I still take medication for my rheumatoid arthritis, which is why I tell you, I would never tell anybody don't, especially if somebody, like depression and anxiety are not things to mess around with. If you're having a severe issue that you feel like you cannot handle on your own, you should seek professional counsel. My thing with it is it should not, they treat your symptoms. They cannot cure you. They cannot fix you. They can only help balance the chemicals in such a way that you feel more calm. Whether, you know, back, if you're up here with anxiety or down here with depression, they can kind of balance it out a little better. But you're not going to get any better without doing all that extra work, whether it's therapy, mindset adjustments, you know, whatever your method is, they can't cure you. Like,
Right.
there's
Right.
nothing really medicine can cure. And I just quit taking a very expensive, very powerful drug for rheumatoid arthritis a few weeks ago for the same reason. Well, different reasons, but the fact that it treats symptoms. Like the only thing that for what I know is it cures anything is antibiotics. You know, antibiotics, antifungal, like that kind of stuff, you know, kills the bacteria. But there's no cure for cancer. They just make it so that they kill all of the cancer cells and it disappears. That's not a cure. Like and I know that sounds harsh because I'm not a doctor, but I have since I'm on a completely different path anyways.
Well, speaking to that anxiety and stuff, I used to have really bad anxiety attack, and back then when I was in 2011, I really had major depression. I think that people don't take the consideration that I read a book called, I don't know if you know Bruce Lipton work, but your mind is an engine of power where when when you're depressed, and because I had a talk with my friend a while back, that when you're anxiety, your whole body start to shut down. When you're depressed, you start to shut down because of your thoughts. Really powerful. Your thoughts affect your body.
I lived that, just so I'll explain in a minute. Go ahead.
Yeah. But see, that's the thing that we don't get. Like, I mean, people like don't get that.
I didn't understand it either till maybe a year ago.
Yeah. So that's incredible. Like like we have the ability. Well, I don't know. I hear so many stories that people have the ability to heal themselves. But yeah, go ahead. You were talking about.
Oh no, I was just gonna say, like I said from day one, when I first got sick, I was diagnosed with something called Guillain-Barré syndrome. And my body it shut down. I was paralyzed. Ended up in the emergency room. I spent 16 days in the hospital. And I kept describing, like, it feels like a stroke. Like it has all of the elements of a stroke except for the brain activity. And it took them a week plus to diagnose me with the Guillain-Barré and then the treatment and rehab and whatnot. But I kept calling it, like the only way I could describe it to people was a physical nervous breakdown. And I didn't realize the impact that statement had until maybe a year ago. But that was just how I was describing it, because that's what it felt like. My body completely shut down. Like I was not supposed to come home, let alone thrive. And so now just reading into some of these things, and I'm really understanding more the mind-body connection and whatnot. That's what happened. Like my body had a nervous breakdown. Like it said, if you're not going to take care of yourself, this is the only way we're going to get you to. And I mean, I was under a ton of stress. I had just broken up with my ex. My husband and I were separated for like 6 years. And so my ex in between that I bought this house with, we separated. I didn't know how I was going to pay the mortgage. I had to go back to work. My kids were home for the summer, so I was trying to work from home at this newer job that I had doing accounting work. I was working 11 hours a day to do 6 hours of work. I was taking tons of caffeine. Like, you know, my son was having all kinds of issues at that time, and, you know, in and out of doctor's appointments and people at the house. And it was just like, I was 113 pounds and just, I'm 5'9". Okay. So that was the lowest I had weighed probably since 7th grade.
You're really tall.
Yeah, I was super physically sick, and I was ignoring all of it because in my mind, I just had to keep going. Like, if I kept going, I had mind over matter, but I had it wrong. You know what I mean? Like, it was like, if I just keep telling myself that I can do this, I can do this. And my body was like, nope, we can't do this anymore. Like, shut me down. That was it. And I had to start all over. Like, I had to learn how to walk, how to eat, how to talk, how to, you know, move my body, how to do like all of these things that they do with a lot of times with stroke patients. And but so when you said that it's 100% right. Like, if your body can only do so much and it can only heal so much, and if you're like neglecting it, like I wasn't eating, just all kinds of things. And my whatever, something saved me and was like, look, you're meant for more. Like, this is not what we're doing. Like, you're done doing this way, because we're going to force you to stop. And it shut me down. And like I said, to me, it took me a really long time to get over that, though. Like, I kept trying to go back to my old life, not necessarily like the eating habits or whatnot, but like the go mentality. Like, I just wanted to come home and like go back to work. And, you know, I came home from the hospital on a Wednesday or something and was back to work on Thursday, working from home. And it proved that like I couldn't do it. I couldn't keep going like that. And we talked before about how like I went through the 7 stages of grief and whatnot. It was just, I couldn't figure out how to get back to the old me when the whole time me was saying we don't want to go back to the old you. You know what I mean? And it took a really long time, like probably 6 years, to accept the fact that going back to the old me was a really bad idea anyways, you know? So.
Well, thank you so much for like sharing that story. It's, you conquered, yes. But I was listening, since you're also an entrepreneur. Like, what's your message for any entrepreneur mom who's trying to build their business? Like, what is your message like for them?
I see, my message really, I haven't thought about it like that.
Well, it's because
as far as entrepreneur moms, but my whole thing, like, so my and you'll get to see my Unbreakable campaign that I'm working on in a couple of weeks.
Well, if you're willing to, I can, if you're working on it, I can like share it with the link in my YouTube description if you want. But you go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, so my Unbreakable campaign is basically, I've been looking for a way to support other people with chronic illness, like I said in the beginning, who are stuck. And my message, so there's a lot of.
What do you want to bring forth to? Yeah, go ahead.
I just want people to understand that they don't have to stay stuck. And it's gonna be hard. It's not gonna be easy, especially when you've got a chronic illness, because chronic illness literally fills every facet of your life. But lifestyle habits and mindset changes and whatnot, like, they can still pursue their dreams. Like, their dreams may have changed, because I know mine did, for the better, but that you still have, like, your life doesn't get thrown away. Like, a lot of these people were in their early 30s, like I was, you know, or early 40s, and you've still got 40 plus 50 years maybe of life left. Like, are you really going to spend it being miserable? And like, that's, I think, why I ended up quitting the Humira after 6.5 months, because I was exhausted and I couldn't do anything. And I'm like, I can't, even if this gives me 5 more livable years, like, it's not going to be worth it because I'm a lump. Like, I can't do anything. Like, I don't want that. I'll take 10 off the end if the next 30 are going to be better, you know? So the Unbreakable campaign is just a nod to anybody who's struggling with in adversity in general. This kind of applies to, but the fact that we're all still here, you know, fighting another day, like, to me, like, I feel unbreakable. Like, the amount of stuff that I've gone through, like, forget about in the past 40 years, just in the past 10 years, is mind blowing. And I'm still here pressing forward, you know, continuing to want to be better for myself, for my kids, for other people. And I wanted a way to show how, so, like, there's a lot of people talk about the how chronic illness is invisible illness. And a lot of people are bringing awareness to these different invisible illnesses. And I get that. Like, I'm supportive of that 100%. But I would rather people see past the fact that I had, like, I almost kind of wanted to be like, people don't even know that I have that. You know what I mean? When you meet me on the street, I don't be like, "Hi, I'm Bonnie. I have rheumatoid arthritis." Like, that's not, you know, that's not who I am. It's just a part of who I am. And I think people get so perfect example. We're Tony Robbins, and this follows with the Secret, where focus goes, energy flows, right? So I found myself slipping back into that misery this past 6 months with the Humira, where the more I was focusing on my illness, like whether it was on social media or talking to people, or the fact that I was taking this drug or rearranging my whole schedule around it and whatnot, like, the sicker I was getting. Like, I was getting, like, exponentially sicker, like, every week. Like, I could feel it. Like, I wasn't getting any better. I was getting way worse. And so I kind of want to take the focus off trying to make these invisible illnesses visible and focus more on helping people understand that, yes, we want people to be accepting of us. Yes, some of us have disabilities. Yes, we want people to recognize the fact that we have these illnesses and things are harder for us. However, if you're constantly focusing on that, you're never going to do anything else. You know what I mean? Like, I'm all for advocating and for disability rights and all of those things. Of course I am. But I almost feel like, and I started to slip into myself, that the people who are only ever focused on what their illness is, what their limitations are, what they can't do,
Right,
whether
right.
you can or you can't, you're gonna be right. And I was again, like I said, I was living that. Like, I was feeling, I couldn't put my finger on it at first, but I was realizing that, like, rearranging my schedule and my family life and my business and everything around this medication that wasn't even, it's not a cure. It was a possibility of slowing down the progression of my illness. And the sicker that I got, like, I was getting worse and worse and worse. And I'm like, this is the complete opposite direction of where I'm trying to go right now. So, yeah, I need to fine tune the Unbreakable campaign and the wording and verbiage. Right now, what I was trying to do was, my original idea was to help people with chronic illness focus. It's still based on the focus, but, like, so somebody's word may be confident, somebody else's word may be resilient, someone else's word, like, and I was doing wanted to do custom designs, and I'm like, what word kind of encompasses all of this? Again, back to the one word. And for me, really, it's just unbreakable. Like, these people, I have been through, I mean, lots of people have been through so much, and they're still fighting. And it's kind of like, you almost know that at this point, no matter what life is going to throw at you, you're going to figure it out. It may knock you down for a while, but you're going to get back up and keep going. And that's why unbreakable is such an important word to me. So
What inspire you to inspire others? Like, I can tell that you care for people. Like, you really do care. Like, what's inside you that?
because so another thing Evan says, and a lot of these things I hear after the fact, I'm like, oh yeah, okay, that explains why I do XYZ. And he says your passion comes from your pain, right? That's
Right.
how Evan
That's
describes
true.
it. And other people have other ways to describe it, and but that made a lot of sense to me. And I had to backtrack and because somebody asked me the same question, I'm like, I don't know, I've just always really wanted to help people, but I've always wanted to help those groups of people who I could resonate with. So like when I was a little kid, having the medical care, like I wanted to open a free clinic, because growing up, our health insurance was horrible. Like we didn't really go to the doctor. We didn't go to the dentist. Like we didn't have, and unless there was an emergency, or something really serious going on. So I wanted to be able to provide that to other people. Now in 7th grade, I had no idea that's why I was, like that, none of this really made sense to me. That's just what I really wanted to do. And I know, like, being stuck, like feeling hopeless and helpless has got to be probably the worst feeling on the planet. Like I've had massive anxiety attacks, like go to the hospital anxiety attacks, and I've had severe depression and felt tons of physical pain. But for me, like the worst thing is feeling stuck, or like you have no chance at your dreams, just like I can't help myself, which makes me helpless and hopeless. If I can't help myself, then how am I going to help other people? Like that was just a miserable place to be. And the thing is I know that you don't have to stay there. You know what I mean? Like I know that if I can pull myself out without any direct guidance of like, here, this is what you need to be doing, then I can hopefully pass that knowledge on to other people who are ready to hear it and help them get out of, because that's a huge key piece, is that people have to be ready to, because I could tell you right now, 5, 6, 7 years ago, had you told me, well, this is all your fault and you need to figure out a way to fix it, I'd been like, fuck you. Like, flat out, don't talk to me. Like, I didn't make myself this sick. Who would do something like this? But I did. Like, I'm now on a new mission to figure out how I got sick in the first place so that I can undo that, because that'll be something else I can teach people at some point. But I did. Like, that's my fault, whether it's hereditary or not. Like, had I not been living my life the way I was at that point, I probably never would have gotten, my immune system wouldn't have been so shot that I was able to get the illness that I have,
Well, thank
And
you.
maybe that's ludicrous. Maybe I'm completely wrong, and they're going to find out 30 years from now that, that's completely incorrect and it's only genetic, but like, or some bug bit me, and you know what I mean? Like, but still, like, whether that's true or not, it still doesn't negate the fact that I wasn't living in a healthy way at that point. Like, I wasn't.
See, the thing is, that's why I'm glad that you say something like, if you had told people that there's another way of living, people would argue with you. Trust me, because for me, I like to talk about my dreams, because my dream is to interview people, and people would think it was preposterous, because I told my friend, I was like, no, I want to interview this guy. I want to interview. It's like, who do you think you are just to interview this guy? But the problem is, like, because people live off based on fear, and I'm glad that you talk about that. And you're right, Evan do talk about that a lot in his video about your your mission, whatever your passion come from your pain, because you don't want people to go through that again, right? That's why I don't want people to go. There are people who are out there who are in special education who think that that they're dumb, that they don't have anything to offer to the world. I never actually explained it that way before. I always said I was dumb, but it was my pain that I didn't knew that we can become genius from, like, because I learned it through books. I hated homework, but I read about the brain. I read about the brain, and it was that's my pain. That I want to inspire people. Also, what does success look like to you?
Success looks to me. So let me ask you to hold on for 1 minute. So you asked what does success look like to me. Um, so had you asked me 5 years ago, I probably, even maybe even 2 years ago, I had a completely different answer for you. Just like we were talking about before with, house and kids and family and, you know, different goals that I had. But now to me, and it's funny you asked me this because I had, a woman named Lily Ma. She's a life coach that I won a session with. Probably about a month ago we talked, and so I've been successful at a lot of things, but I never really looked at those things kind of like as something you would measure success on. So like my kids, they're doing well, they're healthy and happy for the most part. A lot of people consider that a huge success. But for me, that was just the way I did parenting. You know what I mean? Like it wasn't like when I had my kid, they're gonna be happy and you know what I mean? Like they're gonna be this and that. Like no, that's just kind of how you parent. And now for me, so my success now isn't measured by how happy my kids are or how clean my house is, although I'd like it to be clean anyways. Um, it's more so being able to get up every day, and this is going to sound so cliche, but being able to do what you love, um, and just being like happy. And I don't mean like you're giggling and positive every moment of the day, but it's kind of being in a place where if you lose your house, you lost your car, you lost this, you got like nothing about your demeanor would change. So, like, would I like to live in a bigger house? Somewhat. Would I like to live in a different? Well, I do want to move across the country, but that's because of the weather. Um, but like, those are no longer like milestones on like a success chart for me, if that makes sense. Whereas yes, I would be upset if we lost our house or whatnot, but that's not what makes a person successful. I think somebody who's really successful is someone who can get up every day, look themselves in the mirror, and actually say, I'm happy. Like, I'm content, I am happy. And content is such a buzzword anymore, here in the States, anyways, where contentment is considered a negative thing. The people who are content aren't striving for something more. I don't believe that. I think it's saying if nothing else happens, I can live like this every single day. Does that make sense? Like, yes, we all want to, move up. Like I'm not going to quit learning. I'm not going to quit talking to people. I would love to impact more lives, but I think it's having the ability to look at yourself in the mirror in the morning and just say, I'm happy. You know, um,
I mean, I was thinking when you were talking, I was like, you want to impact more people. Maybe in the future we can also do an interview just like this. Uh, if you're willing, that'd be awesome. Um, the story that you told is very inspiring, and that I hope that a lot of parents and moms out there are, they don't, they're you're doing an amazing example for how we can change the mindset. I'm thankful for that.
oh, you're welcome. I believe now that we can because I've done it. Again, like I said, had you told me 5 years ago that I was in control of my mind, I would have been like, you're ludicrous. I have depression. I have anxiety. Like, if I was in control of my mind, why would I be taking all this medication? Like, I wouldn't have listened, probably. You know what I mean? And that's why I also have a strong belief in that things happen to us, one, for a reason, but they also come to us when we're ready for them.
Yeah.
Because it's my friend Lauren that I was telling you about that introduced me to EFT. I had heard about EFT tapping 5 years prior to that. And I'm like, I had no idea what it was, and I had no interest in looking it up. Like, it could have been a 30-second search on YouTube. I could have found out what it was, and it was helping, people all over the place with chronic, and I had no interest in looking it up. I'm like, that sounds dumb. Like, you know what I mean? And now I do it almost every morning. But it, again, mindset, success, like these are all new, these are buzzwords now.
But it's so true.
But that's not a bad thing. You know what I mean? Like,
but it's
really,
shifts though. It shifts your mindset though. Like it's like but the thing about it, think about it. If your mindset, like, even though it's like people say, like, it's people make it, if you didn't go on this, success or personal development path, you wouldn't be where you are. You wouldn't be able to, like, I wouldn't be able to interview people. I mean, like, think about it. We wouldn't be able to, you met Evan Carmichael. Like, that changes. That meant that if we change our mindset, we change like the way we think. The doors open.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
Like,
and that's the attraction, law of attraction too, is like, so now I'm focused on being a better person and doing this and impacting people. Well, those things are going to start coming to me because now that I feel like I'm actually able to do that, where before I never even, like, I mean, even 4 months ago. So you asked me, like, where I got the idea that I wanted to help people and whatnot. About a year ago, maybe a year ago in February, January, I had jumped on somebody's Instagram live, and he brought me on to his live, and he is a dating coach, relationship coach. Excuse me. And he asked me about what I wanted to do or something to that effect. And I was like, I just want to help people. I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to do, how I'm going to do it, and I'm going on. And he said, well, why? And so he's like asking me different questions to kind of pull it out of me. And by the time our conversation was over, he said the same thing you did. He's like, your face just lit completely up. And Lily Ma said the same. She's like, I want you to watch this back and how you talk. Because my whole thing is like, what am I going to talk about? You know what I mean? Like, I want to be a speaker. And I'm like, my mind goes blank. And I'm like, okay, maybe I'm just not ready yet. I'm not asking myself the right questions. So I have to learn how to do that, of course. But I told him, so I started a podcast. I have this thing with this guy, and I decide, this Instagram live, I said, okay, I'm going to be, I'm going to do like you do. I'm going to interview people, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do that. And I got excited. And like the first time I was super excited for something in a really long time. And I'm taking notes and, trying to figure all of this stuff out. And everything came crashing down. Like, it was just a huge disaster. I'm like, okay, well, maybe, and again, this was just a year ago. I'm like, maybe this isn't what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm going to go back to doing t-shirts because I know how to do t-shirts. You know what I mean? Like, that's what I'm good at. That's what I'm going to keep doing. Maybe this is a sign, because no matter what I tried to do, some roadblock was being thrown up. And rather at that point, at looking at it as a like a good kind of test, like, do you really want this? Are you going to keep going? Like, if bad stuff happens, are you going to quit, kind of thing? I took it as a sign that that was not the direction I was supposed to be going. And it came up again. Like I said, I was talking to Lily Ma, and I said, well, in 5 years, actually it came up one more time before that. And I was talking to a business coach friend of mine, and they were like, well, what do you want to do in like 5 years? And I'm like, where do you want to see this business? Like, what do you want your role to be? And I'm like, I don't know. Like, I hadn't thought about it. I was like, I just want to be, I want to help people. That's all I kept saying was I want to help people. And so I sat down at one point and just wrote 2 whole pages. And by the end, I had this like 4 or 5 year plan of how I was going to become a speaker and how I was going to hire people to take over my business. And basically, like, building this business to me up until a month or so ago was giving me credibility. So I wanted to build a business so that when I went to speak to people, I could say, well, I have these chronic illnesses. I built a business, so can you. And not realizing the whole time that although I'm not as far ahead as I'd like to be, I'm still further ahead than I was 7 years ago. And there are people who every single day are getting diagnosed and going home and feeling stuck that I could already be helping. Like I don't have, like I was trying to prove it to myself and prove it to the world and give myself credibility. And until Lily said to me, I wrote those pages and I still was stuck. I'm still figuring I have to wait 5 years. And I was making excuses. Like part of it is my youngest won't start school for about 3.5 more years. He's going to be a late starter. And I'm like, well, I need to wait till he's in school. And you know what I'm saying? This and that. And they were all excuses. It was all excuses because I'm not used to not knowing what the answer is. Like I have always been so freaking resourceful that anytime I got into a problem, I was able to figure something out. Well, it might not have been ideal, but I was able to figure it out. And this was something like, I was like, I have no idea what I'm doing. And I think that was the biggest thing, was like, I was making up all these reasons. And like I said to you, I still don't have a clue, like what I'm going to talk about right off the bat. But I think that it comes with practice just like anything else. But she said to me, why 5 years? Why this 5-year plan? And I told her, I said, well, I need to build this. I have the credibility. She's like, you have credibility now. You have 7+ years worth of experience with this that you could talk about. And I'm like, I never even thought about it that way. And she's like, they're excuses. And I'm like, you're probably right. You know, and the more she talked to me and we talked, she's like, your fate split up and you're really passionate about this. You just haven't taken that step because you don't yet believe you can. And I'm like, you're right. I don't. I have no idea what to do. And didn't feel like I had any kind of credibility because I didn't have that, like we were talking about, that idea of success yet. I hadn't reached that success point by having a successful business. And so, yeah, I would love to be able to impact people. And after talking to her and then talking to Evan again, now it's figuring out the how. So Evan talks about making the big decisions with your heart and the little ones with your head. It's like once you have decided that this is what you're going to do, she's like, I can help you with all the details. It's actually not as hard as you're making it to be. And I'm like, how did I know that was the answer you were going to give me? Like, I'm overcomplicating it.
You know, no, but the thing is, you're so into Evan Carmichael video. I know you watch it, probably watch it because I watch his video too, and I know you're where he, talk about you make your decisions based on your heart, and I love his videos. It's very inspiring. Yeah.
It's what's funny to me is I actually don't watch a whole lot of his YouTube videos. Still, I've watched.
Where you find him? Where
on Instagram?
Huh?
He's on Instagram, and he posts a lot of video clips on Instagram. And I kind of, at one point, I didn't stop watching YouTube, but because for several months last year, I was consuming so much on YouTube, I was getting like nothing else done. I think I told you about that the other day, is that like I was watching Gary Vee videos all day long and just taking notes and like, feeding the kids and putting one down for a nap and doing that. And then like just writing notes and notes and notes and notes and notes. And I'm like, so, and I keep using Evan because he's fresh in my mind right now. He's, massive action. Like you need to say, thinking about it is not going to do you any good. Taking notes is not going to, like, they may help somewhat with some of the technical, but if you get stuck somewhere, you can look something up. And it was just another stalling tactic in a way. It was like, I got to keep consuming this because I don't know what I'm going to do. Instead of getting started, I was just trying to learn as much as I could, whereas I could have been learning through making mistakes, and people don't want to do that. It's painful. Like they don't.
Yeah, that's where I want to bring to talk about too. that people often think that failure or mistakes, or like people have so much past regret that they think that mistakes are like it's there to learn. It's there to like I view failure as nothing more an experimentation that you didn't know.
Right.
You experiment.
And I completely agree with you. And there's also a difference between like accidents and mistakes. Like I joke with my daughter, and this is going to sound really cruel, but actually my husband jokes with her more. But he would use the word that she was an accident. She was an accident. We didn't plan her. And I'm like, yes, but there's a huge difference between an accident and a mistake. A mistake is something you typically regret. An accident is something that happens when you don't mean it to happen that way. And that's where I kind of look at this whole making mistakes thing differently, is that mistakes are things that you regret. Like accidents, you know, whether you get into a car accident or you have an accident or something happens on accident or the outcome wasn't what you expected, so that was an accident, it doesn't mean it was a mistake. Like, did you learn as you were going? Okay, cool. So take what you learned and try it another way. And maybe that's just my non-textbook description of the two words, or maybe I'm getting too technical and picking them apart, but I don't feel like when your intent is pure and you're trying to learn and you're moving forward, even if you get knocked back, like you can't make mistakes. Like there's no such thing. They're just learning experiences. You might not get the outcome that you want, but that doesn't mean that it was a mistake. Like, how are you going to know something's right if you haven't done it the wrong way? You know, or how are you going to know something's wrong if somebody else hasn't done it the right way? Like, there's just, you know, I don't know. I look at those things a lot differently now, that's for sure.
Well, I mean, what you say is incredible. I mean, very inspirational. Where can we find you online?
So I am on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Oh, and YouTube. I have one YouTube video left. At Posh Notions. So that's POSHNOTIONS. And also over at poshnotions.com. I have a website currently. And then I'm on LinkedIn as well, but I have not been active on there very much lately. So.
Oh, thank you. Wait, after this, can you share me your YouTube channel with me, your link, and then your websites in the DM me in the Twitter so I can put it in the description in YouTube, and then also I can subscribe to you too.
Yeah, I'm basically at Posh Notions across social. I got to make that very easy.
Well, I mean, no, because I
will definitely send it to you. And
thank you so much.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And after done with this video, I'll share with you, and hopefully we can figure it out. I'll see you. Okay.
All right. Sounds good. All right.
Bye.
Bye-bye.